Today's Gemara in Yevamos, Daf Lamed Ches. All the learning should be an incredible schashidach for Yisrael Devaira Tamertiba Bas Parachel Shalmin Levi Zahava Ofik Ben Teli Shemin Chayav Lumiyudis Bas Sima Malka. As well as learning should be an incredible schas for Shlema for Shmuel Yosef Ben Eved Shmuel Ben Tila Tavsim Mechlester Nechama Bas Yiva Sarah Bluma Bas Amindol Chaim Moshe Yeshua Ben Malka Bashev Figa Bas Shira Chana Besoich Shar Chayli Yisrael. Now we're holding on Lamed Zayin Amid Bees, and we're about 8 lines into the white lines. The first word of line is at v'shakol, and we are in the middle of discussing these numerous cases when we have a suffix ben teisha l'rishoin ben shiva l'sheni. We have a woman that got remarried before ascertaining whether she was pregnant or not. She did ibum, and now we're not sure, is this baby that is born a full-term baby from the first husband, and the isser that she did with the second husband was usser, but the child is from the first husband? Or do we say no, that she was over an isser, and the child that was born is from the second husband, and the child's a mamzer? The discussion that began at the end of yesterday's shiur was, how do we deal with this with regards to the dinim of Yerusha? Because now we're going to have numerous fights because we don't know who is this baby's father. Is this child's father the first husband, or is it the second husband? And now we're going to have countless cases, 6 or 7 cases, in which are going to center around this detail, with the unknowing, the lack of knowledge of who this child is. So yesterday we began, and we'll go through a few cases of the Savik Ben Teisha L'Risha Shiva L'Sheni L'Acharain. And case number 1 was this child comes to Bezdin together with the Yavam, together with the second husband, and they're fighting over B'nichzei Misna. They're fighting over the estate of the dead brother, and the child says, "Anavar misno, I am a 9-month-old baby, and therefore everything is mine." The second, the Yavam, says, "No, you're my child, and therefore you don't get anything because I got the whole inheritance. You would only get from me, but I got the whole inheritance." So he said, "This is Mammon Amuta B'Safek V'Cholk." And I think I made a mistake yesterday. I said it's a 1/3 and 2/3. That's the next case, which we'll get to in a moment. Case number 1, 50-50. Case number 2, now we have the suffix, the same child, and he's coming to Bezdin with the children of the second husband, the children of Shimon and the children of the Yavam, and they're coming to divide the estate of the Yavam. The suffix says, Ahu Gavra Bar Misnahu. Whenever it says Ahu Gavra, even though that's a third person, that man, he's referring to himself, and he's saying, Ahu Gavra Bar Misnahu, I am his son, and all the entire estate is mine. And again, I what did I say a second ago? They're arguing over the estate of the mace, not of the Yavam, excuse me. The suffix and the children of the Yavam are arguing over the estate of the first brother. So the suffix says, I'm a ben Teisha, it's all mine. The ben Yavam says, no, you're our brother. You're a 7-month-old baby, you were born to our father, you are our brother, and therefore, misnahud islach badon, and therefore we agree you get something, because we're both inheriting from our father, our uncle, but we get together. And this was the case in which we said, ID v'ID suffix, and what's the din? The suffix automatically gets 1/3 because the brothers are agreeing that you're our brother. They're agreeing that he gets something, so he gets 1/3. Again, this is assuming there's 3 brothers, it's easiest case. And the other 2/3 is Mammon Amuta suffix, and we split that in half. The suffix gets another half, which is 1/3. And then the 2 brothers get the remaining half. So the 2 brothers then get 1/3, and the suffix is going to get 2/3. This is the third case, which the Gemara brought down almost parenthetically, that the suffix and the Bnei Yavam Shavo Lachla B'Nichse Yavam Gufa. That was where I made the mistake. Here they're coming to divide the Yavam's property himself. Then we say, I see Raya Da'achuna At V'Shakol. The suffix gets nothing because Ha'moitzi Mechaveir Olav Araya. Very important rule in all Dinei Mammon is that whatever the money is, that's where it's assumed to be. You want to take away the money, you want to be moitzi the money, you have to bring a raya. So you're coming along and you're saying you're our brother, you're a 7-month-old baby of the second husband, you need to bring a raya to that fact. And this is case number 4, in which we're about to see inside. Let's just see it in the picture first. And again, the suffix and the children of the Yavam, they're coming to divide the property of the Yavam. Again, the second husband. Lebasar de palag Yavam b'nichsei misna. It's getting a little confusing. The Yavam already took the estate of the dead brother, of the first brother, and now he took half of that estate, and now the Suffolk and that Yevam's children, Shimon's children, are coming to divide that property. So the Bnei Yavam, those Shimon's children, what are they saying? Bring a raya. Again, you want to get involved to bring a raya. But the Suffolk says, whichever way you look at it, I have a claim. Why do I have a claim? If I'm your brother, if I'm a 7-month-old baby, if I was born from the Yavam from Shimon, then what? I'm your brother, so I get part of your father's estate. And if you're going to tell me that what? Ani bar misna, I'm a 9-month-old baby, I'm from the first husband, then I automatically get half. Your father wasn't allowed to take it. Your father went and took the whole estate of Reuven of the dead husband. How could he have done that? I'm his child. So here the suffix says, automatically I should be getting half. And the Gemara is going to tell us this is a machlekes Rav Abba, my Rav versus Rav Yirmiyah, whether we say that the earlier division that the brother, that Shimon, that the Yavam grabbed, whether he keeps it. Do we say Kam Dina, his division stays, or do we say Hadar Dina, we undo it? The Bnei Yavam must satisfy the claims of the Safek, thereby we undo the division that their father took. Or do we say no, whatever was done is done. Now we deal only with the state of the Yavam, and therefore the Bnei Yavam can say again, Ha'amaiti mechaverai alav haraya. So now let's go and let's read this fourth case inside the Gemara, 10 lines down, At Vishakal, the first two words on the line. Safek u'bnei Yavan shamalach le'bnechse Yavam libasar dibal Yavan, after already the Yavan took a state of the first brother, b'nechse misna. So bnei Yavan Amri again, I see raya dachunat, bring a raya, ha'moiti mechaver lavaraya, you want something? Bring a raya v'shakal and you'll take. Armelu Safek, and the Safek responds, no, manavshach, iyachuna no, if you agree I'm your brother, I'm a 7-month-old baby, I'm from Shimon, Havlu Mista Badaichu, then I get part of the property from you. Vibar Miznana, if you're going to tell me no, I'm a 9-month-old baby, I'm from the first husband, then Havlu Palga de Palgavuchan, then I should get half, because then what happened? My father was the first husband, he died, and I should have gotten half, so give it to me. Badai. So Rav Abba Amar Rav Kam Dina, Rav Yirmiyah Amar Hadar Dina. Says the Gemara's machlekes, do we undo that which they did or not? Do we say Kam Dina, that which was a stand? Or do we say Hadar Dina, that which the brother took goes back, and now we start again? So says the Gemara, Lema Blikta da Adamain, V'Rabbanan Kamivli, it would seem that Rav Abba and Rav Yirmiyah are arguing in a machlekes with regarding to Admain, that's a Tana's name, and the Rabbanan. The Tanan we learned in a Mishnah. Someone went to Medina Sayyam. This is a Gemara in Ksube. Someone went to Medina Sayyam, and he comes back and he realizes he used to have a road to get from the street to his house, and all of a sudden he doesn't have the road anymore. Why? Because they built houses all around him, they built fields all around him. So Admain Amar Yelich Miksara, he's allowed to go and make a new shortcut straight through someone else's field to get to his path in the middle. Chamarim, no, yikach l'derech b'mei amana. Buy it. You let it charge him whatever you want if he wants to make a path through your field. Or yifrach ba'avir, or go fly through the air. That's a machlekes verse Advain versus Rabbanan. Va'avinan ba, and over there in Ksubis, we dealt with this and we thought about it. We said the Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, that we're saying you can charge an exorbitant amount or go fly a kite. Basically, Shaber Kamer Admain. I don't understand. Admain has a good taina. Admain says, what do you mean? Before I was able to get here, I should be able to get here now. V'amarav Yuda Marav, you know what the case is? 4 different people put fields around these 4 fields. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, my time with the Admain. Now fakert. So now why does the Admain say you're allowed to go wherever you want? If it's 4 different brothers, 4 different people, each one should say go to the other one. He has no claim through each field. And Rav explained about Arba the Asimi Koyach Arba. Either it's 4 people that bought from 4 previous people, or if Arba doesn't Koyach Had, or 4 people that bought from 1 person, and therefore Kuli Amalei Plihidimati Midchilei. Both Admain and the Rabbanan agree that they're able to push him off. Even Admain says each one could say, go somewhere else. I'm not giving you a right to my field. Keep the machlekes is b'chad There were 4 owners surrounding this field. Now one person bought all 4 fields. Admon says, you know what? He's allowed to take a field. He's allowed to make a path through. You know why? Because there is some path that I have over here, because originally it was only, now you own all 4 fields. If you want to be quiet, no problem, we could sell it to you. You know what he says? We're going to give it back to the owner. And how many owners were there? 4 different owners. And are you going to be able to gain anything? No, because each one could push you off. And that's why the Rabbanan hold that you could charge as much as you want. So after developing that, Brisa says the Gemara Leimer Rav Abba Damer K'Rabanan for Rav Yirmiyah Damer K'Admon. Perhaps what's going on over here is Rav Abba in our case, when Rav Abba said Kam Dina, that which stands, that continues, is like the Rabbanan, in which the Rabbanan are saying either take what you get or we're going to redo the whole thing, meaning you're going to have no say. For Rav Yirmiyah Damer K'Admon, and Rav Yirmiyah is saying like Admon. Says the Gemara, no, Amr L'cha Rav the only reason there was an isolated machlokes, because you could say there's some path somewhere. I used to have a path. That's why Admon says he gets something back. In our case, there's no time at all in our case. There's no way that he could say this son, this Safi kid, he doesn't have a definite claim. For Rav Yerbel, similarly, Rabbanan, I go like the Rabbanan over there. The Rabbanan there only held what they held because they had the right to say either be quiet, because it came from 4 original owners, and therefore you'll lose everything. In our case, there's nothing to be said. So says the Gemara, our case indeed has absolutely nothing to do with the case from Ksubis, the Machlekes Admoin, and the Chachamim. Continues the Gemara, we're up to case number 5, dealing with the Safik Bentisha L'Rishon, V'Sheva L'Sheni, different cases of Yerusha, what we do with it. So says the Gemara 7 lines down, L'Amechesa Man Aleph, Safik V'Yavin Shabal Lachli Menichsei Saba. Now, what are they coming to divide? They're coming to divide the state of the grandfather. Safik Amar Hai Gava Bar Misno. You know what the Safik says? The Safik says, I'm the son of the original brother. I'm a Ben Teisha. And therefore what? And I get half of the grandfather's estate like my father would have gotten. And Yavam Amar, no, At B'rai Didiat, you're my son. You're a 7-month-old baby. And you get absolutely nothing. Why? Because I got the whole estate and I inherit my brother. And therefore you don't get anything. Says the Gemara, Have a Yavam Vadai. The Yavam has a definite claim over here. Why? Because the Yavam for sure, either way, he's either going to get 50% of the grandfather or 100%. The Safik. The Safik doesn't have a definite claim. He's saying, I'm a 9-month-old baby. He doesn't really know, of course, but he was only all that sad that he would get. And therefore, in Safik Majid Vadai, and therefore the Safik cannot take from the Vadai, and therefore the Yavam is going to win this case. Here, let's just see this together. The Safik and the Yavam, the Safik says, I'm a Ben Teisha, and therefore I get a half. And the Yavam says, no, you're my child and you get nothing. So it's very important that the Yavam is fighting to give him nothing. The Safik's only fighting for half, and therefore that's the reason why the Yavam creates the Vade, and the Safik is a Safik being Safik. Might see me Vade. While we have this picture up, let's see the final and the 6th case that the Safik and not the final. There's going to be a 7th case in a moment. Safik and the Bnei Yavam, they come to argue Menichsei Saba again, but now it's with the Bnei Yavam, the children of Shimon, and the Safik are fighting. The Safik says again, I am a 9-month-old baby and I get half, and the Bnei Yavam say, you're our brother. And therefore, as we've always seen when they say that you're our brother, u'menasa islach ba'hadon, and therefore you get something with us. Again, the table just turned. It's no longer a Safik and a Vadai, because the children are admitting that at most they're going to get half, that he's their brother. And on this, the Gemara is going to say, similar to what we said before, that Pashlu, that what's going to happen is they're going to go 50-50 over here. The Safik's going to get 1/3. The Bnei Yavam are going to get 2/3. are going to get. Let's let the Gemara read it. Let's let the Gemara read it. Let's go. Something b'nei Yav and Jabal Achlam Menich say Saba. Something Gemara Hu Gavra. Bar Misnu. I'm a 9-month-old baby. You palk the deal, and I get 50%. B'nei Yav and Amri Achuna. You're our brother. Umenaso is l'chba'adan. If you get something with us, so all admitting that the suffix gets something, which is going to be the reason why we're going to have this complicated division. Says the Gemara, what do we do? The brothers are admitting that the suffix gets something. And therefore, what happens is the opposite. The suffix is admitting that the brothers get something. He's at most a 50% shareholder. So the brothers take half. That's on half. Tilsa, now we have a third. The opposite. Now a third that the brothers are admitting goes to the suffix he gets. Shakal he takes. So Pashtu Danka, now there's only a 6 left over. And therefore you're going to split it. Before we see that picture, let's just read the 7th and 8th cases. Sav of the Yavam and the grandfather of Yavam come to fight over the case, the suffix property. Now we want to know what happens later in life, hopefully. The suffix is nifter, who divides him? Here you have the case on the right side, you see that the Bnei Yavam, they get the first half because the suffix admitted that at most he's a 50% shareholder. So the first 50% right away goes to the children of the Yavam. Now the Yavam admitted to the suffix that he gets something. So that's going to be 1/3. That's going to be 1/3. As we're seeing here, it's split up into 6. 2 6 is going to be 1/3. And the final 6 is Mammon HaMutal B'Safek. And Mammon HaMutal B'Safek is going to be Cholkim. Says the Mishnah. Shaimeres Yavam Shenavla Nechasim. Now we have a case of a Shaimeres Yavam. A woman that is awaiting Yibum. And what happens if in that status, we've spoken about her many times. This was the discussion. We'll just remind yourself back in the day about Yesh Zika, Ein Zika, what is the status of the woman while she awaits Yibum. So now we're going to see another application. While she's awaiting Yibum, what happens is Naflu Lav Nechasim, she inherits, her own father is Nifter, and she inherits properties. What is the status of those properties in relation to her future husband, the Yavam that is awaiting to do Yibum? So in this case, Maidim Beishami Beisil, of course, the Lashon Maidim is difficult. This is piggybacking off of the original Makar of this Gemara, which is the Gemara in Ksubis, in which Beishami and Beisil have a machlokes. But in this case, they admit Shamay Cheres v'Naisanes v'Kayom, that she is allowed to do whatever she wants with that property. Mesa, if she dies before she gets a chance to Yibum, she is nifter. Now what? What happens with her ksuba? And of course, we have all the properties that she takes into the marriage with her. So who inherits her? What do we view her with regard to inheritance with regard to the Yavam? Beishamai says, the Yarshim of the husband divide with the Yarshim of the father. But Beis Hillel says no. Says Beis Hillel Imrim. We just point out, excuse me. We just point out that when the Mishnah is saying the Yarshim of the Av, that means her own Yarshim. Beis Hillel Imrim, Nechasim b'chazkasam, all the properties remain in their original chazaka, whoever has them currently. Ksuba b'chesis yarshei habal, nechasim and nechasim v'yotzim b'chesis yarshei ha'av, in her Yarshim's estate. Konsa, if she got married, the Yavam did Yibum to her, Harei he ke'ishtay l'chol davar, as we've seen many times, u'bilvad shetei ksuba l'chsei baila rishayna, but the original ksuba, her original husband's estate, has to pay for. It is running late, but let's take a moment and seeing the pictures, which of course always adds an incredible level of clarity. Dafachayim.org. Absolutely amazing. Here you have, of course, Reuben and Shimon. Shimon is married to Rachel. Shimon dies. What is the status with Rachel with regard to Reuven after Rachel's own father dies and she inherits property from her father? So in this case, we said, Macharis and his sons, the Kaim, to do what she wants. Mesa, what happens if she dies? What happens with her Ksuba? What happens with her properties? Beis Shammai said, Yachloku, her Yarshim, which we call the Yarshi'ab, with the husband's Ruvain's Yarshim. Beis Hillel says, no, the Nechasim stay where they are. Ksuba is in the husband's, and the Nechasim are with her. Excuse me. Shemeres Yavam. Excuse me, that's the kasha of the Gemara. Well, just once we have the picture open in front of us, the Gemara is going to wonder, I don't understand, why in the Reisha, when we said that the properties fell, we said Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel both admit she can do what she wants. But in the Seifa, we asked what happens with their own ksuba, with their own properties. That we said it's a machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Maishna Reisha d'loi pligi, Maishna Seifa de pligi. Says the Gemara, Maishna Reisha d'loi pligi, Maishna Seifa de pligi, Amar Ula. Teretz number 1 of many terutzim. Reisha denaflik she arusa. V'seif denaflik she nesua. In the Reisha, she didn't fully consummate the marriage yet. She's only an arusa, and therefore, I should say that better. Excuse me. Her original marriage was only in a marriage of erisin. She never consummated that original marriage, whereas the Seifa is referring to when there was an Isua. So again, if there was only Erisin, then what happens with her own properties, that her own father died? Everyone agrees she can do whatever she wants. If she did Nisuin already, that's going to be the Machlaikas. Look at Rashi for one moment. Amar Ula Reisha D'Ravak Shia Rusa Shenafla Liyibam Mei Erusin. She fell to Yibam not from Nisuin. Her original marriage was only a marriage of Eris in stage A. Now while she's awaiting Yibam from Erusin, that's when Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel admit that she has full control over her estate. The Seifa is when she already did Nisuin. Now let's go in with Rashi. Hilkach says Rashi, Reisha Diligabe Arusa Mamish Kaim on the Beis Shammai Timchar Kedan the Kaman Keshikin Zu Sheino El Zkuka Ba'alma Ubeis Hillel Damri Barusa Vadelon Timkar. That's only the Chatchila. Avlemachav and Asle Kayim. Hachamish of the Savik Arusi Dagida Bay. Valav Ishtoi Mamishi Moide Beis Hillel the Mechazan as the Chatchila. Very simply that because they're not fully, she's never fully married, she retains the rights to that which falls to her. Says the Gemara, V'kesavar Ula, Zikas Arusa Ises Safek Arusa, whereas Zikas and Nesua Ises Safek Nesua. Says the Gemara, you know what we see from here? What does Ula hold with regard to the Zika from a Safek? Excuse me, of Arusa or Nesua, that the Zika of an Arusa creates a Safek. The Zika of a Nisua, says Safek Nisua. And the Gemara now explains, Zika Arusa, when she only had Erisin to the first husband, so now her attachment, again, the Zika is the attachment between the brother and her. That attachment, when she fell from Erisin, says Safek Arusa makes her a Safek. That what? Arusa. Because if she was a full-fledged Arusa, of course not. If she's a regular Arusa, why would Beis Hillel be Maidav on Tanan? Navla Mechazim Mishanisarsu is a Machlaikes. Bishamir and Timkar, Bisalam Relay Timkar. Elu Maidim Shemacham and Asna Kayim. But the Evid are maskim. El Shmami enough from the fact that both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, particularly Beis Hillel over here, is maskim that she can sell the estate must be why Zigas Arusa Oiseh Safek Arusa. Stage number A doesn't make her a Vade Arusa because a Vade Arusa is a machlaikes whether she can sell her estate that she inherits from her father. It makes her a Safek, and that's why Beis Hillel says she can sell it. Zigas Nisua, he says Safek Nisua. And what does that teach us? You know what the reason is? Because if it's the truth that she becomes a full-fledged Nisua via the Zika, Beis Shammai Yachlaikum. Yarshe Abal and Yarshe Av. What did Beis Shammai say? What they said in the Sefer was Machlekes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. What did Beis Shammai say? Beis Shammai said they divided her Yarshim with the husband's Yarshim. Says the Gemara, but that's not true either. But we learned in the Mishnah, Naflu La. Another Mishnah in Ksubis. Navla and the Chasim Misha Niseis. If a property is felt her after Niseis, after Nisuin, that if they sold it, then you're mighty in front of the Lekuchais. What do we see? we see that Beis Shammai holds that the husband does have rights once there is Nisuin. So from the fact in our Mishnah, what did the Mishnah teach us? The Mishnah taught us that Yachloiku, it's 50-50, it's not fully in control of the husband's estate. Elishmami, no, Zikas Nesua is a Safik Nesua. So part A, Ula's way of explaining the discrepancy between the Reisha and the Seifa. Reisha no Machlekes, Seifa yes Machlekes. The Reisha was a Erisin to the original husband, the Seifa wasn't a suin. The Reisha was Eris its original husband, and the Zika of that creates a suffix, and that's why Beis Hillel's Maida, she could do what she wants. The Seifa was a Zika from Nisuin, which creates a suffix Nisuin, and that's why Beis Shammai holds that it will be Yach Loiku. Omar le Rabba, asks Rabba, Ademivlik begufo lachar misa. Why in the Mishnah did the Mishnah, the second half of the Mishnah, argue about Gufa ulachar misa? We argue about her herself, and after, what's the status of the properties after she dies? If the way that you just explained that we're dealing with a nisuin of a suffix nisuin in the seifa, why don't we argue while she is alive? And what is the status of the peiros, of the produce from any property of her? And therefore Rabbah says, you are wrong. It can't be that the difference between the Reish and the Seifa is whether it's Erisin or Nisuin. Elam Rabbah, Pshat number 2, a completely new understanding how to learn the Mishnah. The entire Mishnah is talking about that she did Nisuin to the first husband. Vizikas Nisuin, and the case of the Zika, the connection of an Nisuin, says Rabbah, just like Ula creates a suffix Nisua. But now we have the Kasha. Why in the Reisha to Beis Hillel Maida and the Seifa to Machlekes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel? Explains Rabbah. Reisha di'ihi kaima. What's the case of the Reisha? She's alive, and therefore she inherits from her father. Havleihi vadai inu suffix. She is a vadai, whereas the husband, the Yevamos, Yarshim, they're considered a suffix, and therefore the rule is vein something much of vadai. Whereas in the Seifa de Mesa, again, the case of the Seifa is where she is nifter, so no longer is it a vadai. Halalu ba in the Yarish, halalu ba in the Yarish. So her Yarshim come to inherit, her husband, the Yevamos Yarshim, come to inherit. We have two people trying to grab hold of a property, and they're both at the same level of suffix, ve'yach laiku, and therefore it's going to be a division. So explains the Rabbah, the difference between Reisha and Seifa is whether they're both a case of Nisuin. They're different cases. In the Reisha she is alive, in the Seifa she is no longer alive. But Eisei Abayi says Abayi there's a problem. Beis Shammai, based on what you just said, you know what comes out? Ain't something much of a vadai. You just told me that the reason in the Reisha is why? Because she's a vadai, the Yarshim are a suffix, and the Yarshim can't take away from her. Ask the Gemara, but is that true? Beis Shammai ain't suffix might be de vadai, but Beis Shammai holds that a suffix does not to take away from a vadai. Beis Shammai holds, does Beis Shammai agreed to this rule that a suffix does not take away from a vadai? Fatanan, we learned in a Mishnah, Nafla Bayis Lova Alaviv, Rahman al-Itzlan. We have a house that collapsed on a person and his father. Allah Val Marishav collapsed on him or on one of the ones who inherits him. Vayu Alav Ksubas Isha. And then the son had to have paid Ksuba, Ubal Chayiv, and their debtors, Viyarshe. Ha, Vayimrim, now we have a fight. Those who inherit the father say, Haben Meis First the son died and then the father died. What's the kasha? I know we didn't explain the case, we're running out of time. What's the kasha? Because he's suffix. Ask the Gemara, Beis Shammai, we all know the klal of ein suffix might be devadai. Says the Gemara, Beis Shammai disagrees. Beis Shammai does not hold of that klal. Beis Shammai holds a suffix could take away from a vadai. Answers the Gemara, Kasavri Beis Shammai, Shtaroi Meligbois Ki Gavoi Dami, and because it's a shtar, it's not a suffix take away from the vadai. The suffix has a shtar, and since the suffix has a shtar, that's the reason why the suffix wins, not because suffix wants to be vadai. And we'll pick it up from here tomorrow. But let's just show very, very quickly. This is Ula Teretz that the Reisha is enough like Shia Arusa, Seifla is enough like Shia Nisua. That was Teretz number 1 of the Gemara. Teretz number 2 is Adarabba, the Reisha, she's alive. Therefore, she's a Vadai. The Seifa, she is no longer with us. And the Gemara is explaining that Beis Shammai could concur. There is no kasha because there's a star. That's why that case is different. We'll pick it up from there. V'siyata d'shmaya in the next year.